Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We all know him simply as Pastor Elder Stacy, but we don't know him as the man beyond the pulpit. So tonight he has graciously agreed to sit down with us for a special evening called Getting to Know Your Pastor. And I thought that this was a good idea because a lot of times we look at pastor as this great, amazing man that's in the pulpit, but who is he? Who is he beyond the pulpit? Is he friendly? Is he this? We see him laugh and everything, but we really don't take the time out to get to know him. And this is an opportunity to get to know him. So I'm going to ask him some questions, and we're going to take this time tonight to really get to know our pastor. Pastor Stacy, thank you so much for allowing us this time to just figure out who you are. Maybe when we walk away, we have a different look for who you are.
For the better or for the worse, right?
Definitely. Hopefully for the better. So, one of the first questions I wanted to tell us a little bit about your childhood. Like, what were your likes? What were your dislikes?
I grew up in a two-family home. My mom didn't work for the first few years of our life. We knew my mom as our teacher because before we started school, she had already taught us, how to count and our numbers, and I still remember to this day, and I don't know exactly what candy it was, but I can see it in my mind that she would reward us with a particular candy that very similar to the Werther's candy. Okay. I remember that my father worked and he would get in the floor and play with us, but our household was also very strict, very strict. Our life was centered around the church, so much so that we didn't ask to do extracurricular activities if we knew they were going to interfere with church night. We didn't even ask because we already knew the answer was no. A little bit different today. My children are very involved in church, and so if they have to occasionally miss church, I'm okay with that because okay. They're very active here. What becomes problematic is these parents that they will move heaven and earth to get their child to do stuff outside of church, but won't prioritize or make sure that their children are involved at church. It sends the wrong message. But we got a very clear message in our home that church and God was priority. My parents were too strict, actually. And they raised us to the best that they knew how, really. And we all turned out good, depending upon what you consider good.
So do you think did the way your parents raised you, did it make you a little bitter?
No.
Because
no, I'm not bitter about the way that I was raised.
But did you, at that time when you were younger, did you want to do things that because of the strictness of your parents couldn't do to make you feel some type of way?
No, because we were allowed to do things. We were allowed to do things. We went on family vacations. And, I remember certain days, my father would take us to the CVS that was near our house and say, get whatever you want. And we go through just, we didn't believe him at first. So we went through and we picked a little bit of stuff. And then, he used to get it. And we started getting most stuff. So I don't remember having a sense of bitterness about the way that I was raised. I don't, in terms of that, I don't remember having that sensation.
So tell us about when you were a teenager. Were you the average teenager? Did you rebel some?
Well, you can't be an average teenager and be holy.
Okay.
I wasn't holy, but I wanted to be, and so I did my devilment, but I didn't. I don't know. I feared God. I didn't certain things I just didn't even want to do. When I was in high school, I know that marijuana even then was a big deal for the students, but I never wanted to do that. That wasn't a thing for me. So I was a nerd. I was in the top 10% of my graduating class in high school. I was first black student body president that my school had ever had. I was involved in extracurriculars. I tried running track because my brother did, but I only did it because he did it.
So
And I got hurt, and nobody believed me. They thought that I was just acting like that because I knew I wasn't going to win. And that hurt my feelings because I really was hurt.
wow. So were you the quiet one? Were you the funny
I ain't
one?
never been quiet.
Okay.
In fact, it's a running joke, and even now, and I'm past 50, it's a running joke now that the phrase that was common was "Shut up, Stacy." My dad, though, would aggravate everybody. He'll say, "Talk, Stacy, talk." But everybody else be saying, "Shut up, Stacy," because even at that time, um, like to talk. I like to teach people. I like to explain things. I like to correct them, even at that young age.
So what's one thing that your mom or dad taught you that still sticks with you today?
God, we had a strong. I'm gonna tell you now. When the Bible says, "Train a child in the way that it should go," even when I didn't have the Holy Ghost, it felt some type of way for me to be out of church. That came from the habit and what our parents taught us. I thought and believed that I was doing the wrong thing by staying out of church. But people don't feel like that today. We have church, and we were in church all the time. In fact, when I say my parents were too strict, what I mean by that is if we had homework to do, we had to get it done before Bible study on Monday nights. And if we didn't get it done, we would have to stay up after Bible study. But you weren't doing no homework during Bible study.
So what did you think you wanted to be, or what was your dream, or what goal did you have for yourself as far as a career if you hadn't been pastor?
Well, pastoring is actually not a career because I don't make a living from it. I'm what you would call bi-vocational, bi meaning two vocations, in that I don't do this to get a full-time salary to support my family. I work a full-time job. When I was younger, I used to say I wanted to be the first black president.
Okay.
That was something that I used to say. As I got older, I got really turned off by politics. But I knew that I wanted to do something involved related to teaching. I knew from second grade, believe it or not, I knew from second grade that teaching was something that that felt right to me. I had a teacher, I still remember her name. She would leave out of the classroom one day she was hoarse. She had lost her voice, and she called me up and she would whisper to me what to say to the students. And I would repeat what she said. Again, this is second grade, but she was moving too slow. So I stopped listening to her and I started teaching on my own. And this is a true story. And she just would stand and look. So even at that age, I was a precocious child, but it felt right to me. And even, oh my goodness, if the students were not paying attention, I would call their name. That's the kind of student I was.
So would you say that she's the first person that saw something in you? along the line of teaching? Or who was the first one that saw something in you that you didn't see in yourself?
Uh, my father says that they knew that I was going to be a preacher or a teacher, but I don't remember them saying that to me. Um, I don't remember them saying that to me. They may have, but I forget things. Um, I'll tell you two things that to this day are remarkable to me. And that was Bishop Lucas, who was one of our, we call him really the foundation of the true church, even though his father founded the church. But I had the privilege of sitting under Bishop Lucas's teaching. And Bishop Lucas told me and the congregation that he believed I was going to be a great man in this kingdom or in the kingdom or in the world, in this world or in the world to come. And that, because I thought so much of who he was, I remember that to this day. I understand greatness as not about one's status or title, but I understand greatness as about one's capacity and ability to serve. And even as a pastor, I'm a leader, but the leadership is in service of serving people and getting them what they need to get them to a certain place. So that's one thing that was remarkable to me. And the second thing is when I was in graduate school working on my first master's degree, I'm a first generation college graduate. My parents had some technical training and that sort of thing after high school, but I'm a first generation college graduate. And so then to go on and get a master's degree, one of my teachers, because at that time I was intending to become a high school English teacher. That is, I had gotten my certification. I was credentialed. I was interested in becoming a high school English teacher. And one of my teachers in graduate school said, "You know what? You got something." I'm like, "What? What do I have?" She said, "You've got something. You should think about doing a PhD." And I had no idea what that meant because I'd never seen anybody who looked like me with the PhD. And in fact, I did not even know what PhD stood for. I had to go look it up in the Oxford English Dictionary to understand what those initials stood for. And because of that white woman, I pursued graduate studies and specialized in African American literature and culture. And I'm an English professor today. It's one of the reasons why I tell people that sometimes your biggest allies won't look like you, so you can't get caught up in what people look like.
That is true.
You got to get caught up in who they are, what they do, what they show you. So those are two remarkable things that I remember about somebody speaking to me like that outside of family members. I remember being a child and getting into the gifted program. And I like to tell parents, if your child is smart, but maybe they talk too much or maybe they can't sit still, don't discipline them. More than likely, if they're smart, they are gifted and bored. And I would get in trouble because I would finish my classwork and I was bored. And I would get up and I would go help the other students with their work. And I got in trouble for that. Now, how stupid is that? Think about that. And my teacher should have recognized that. And she did not. And she would give me N's in conduct, and N stood for needs improvement. She would give me N's in conduct, and that was not the right thing to do. That could have discouraged me from being an avid learner. I am not saying that discipline was not important, but for there to be no intervention to recognize he's making all A's, but seems to have a discipline problem, that's problematic.
So, was there any time in your younger years, especially teenager, college years, where you made a big mistake that taught you something, or you endured something that really taught you something?
I was a horrible student body president. I didn't understand the mechanics of leadership. And nobody had to tell me that I was bad at it. I knew I was bad at it. I didn't understand the mechanics of leadership, and made some assumptions about how to lead. So no one ever told me that I was bad at it. It's from my estimation of it. I felt like I was bad at it. And as a result of that, to this day, I still study leadership. To this day, I still read books and articles about effective leadership, and so forth. So I don't know if does that answer your question?
It did. So what are you still learning about yourself?
I don't know that I am still learning things about myself, but I am still accepting some things about myself.
Okay.
I am very self-aware and probably the most critical of myself that anybody else would be. Part of what I am accepting about myself is that I am bad at following through on small details. I'm a big vision person, like working in the weeds, having to attend to small details and things like that. Those things could fall through the crack. So what I do is I surround myself with people and with technology that can supplement for what I recognize as a deficit. Another thing is I get bored very easily. I used to beat myself up about that. I don't anymore. I accept that as part of my personality. Yeah, but I get bored very easily, and I move from one thing to the other.
So are you often told, or have you been told, that your personality is intimidating?
I have.
And how do you, well, I guess I guess you have to accept that, because I know that that's not who you're trying. That's just the way it
Yeah.
comes out.
I can't be responsible for other people's reaction to me. That is their job. All I can do is to try to be my most authentic, holy self. That really. Um, People are uncomfortable with people who are direct. That's their problem. It's not mine. It really. It's like somebody being not liking that I'm wearing a blue jacket. That ain't my problem. They got to deal with that. So it displeases me, and it actually hurts my feelings when I learn that people have a negative perception of what I do and who I am that's inconsistent with who I am. But a lot of times they won't say anything to you about it. You just notice they treat you good. What can I do? So I can't, what I'm trying to say is it bothers me, but I can't be held accountable for their reaction. They have to deal with that as well. And if you don't make somebody aware of something that they may have done to aggravate you or bother them, what can you do about it? Let me just say this, and that is so, well, but yeah, I'll stop there.
You can finish that. I was interested to hear that part. That sounds like a good part right there. Don't hold back that.
Many of us are emotionally immature and don't know how to deal with disagreement, If somebody disagrees, our response manifests as anger rather than curiosity. That's emotionally immature.
So for the ones that think that way and think that you're, because you're so, what's the word I'm looking for?
Careful.
Because they feel that you are that way and judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the judgmental comes because they have built this perception,
Yeah.
for
Of
lack
who
of a
they
better
think I
word,
am.
of
Yeah.
who they think you are, and then so
Because
it
of my
comes
delivery.
right. So, do you ever try to fix that with them, or if you know that this person? Because have you had anybody come to you directly and say that?
I've had a few people, but again, if you come to me and I say to you, I'm sorry, that's not what I intended, or that's not what I meant. If you don't accept what I say, what can I do about it? Right? If you come to me and I give you an explanation and say that's not what I meant, right? Then if that thing is still striking you that way, what we should do is to examine ourselves and ask, what is it in us that makes that bother me so much? You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Because even if somebody hurts my feelings, that's not their responsibility, that's mine. I need to figure out, why does that bother me? You understand what I'm saying? But what people do today, especially in the 21st century of social media, is we want to make everybody else responsible for the way we feel. That is not mature.
So, my next question would go into that. What makes you emotional?
What makes me emotional? I actually, hey, you're not going to believe this probably, but I hurt when I know other people hurt too. I am, in certain seasons, will cry at commercials. um,
Do you think that's just age?
no,
Because I cry.
I've been
cry
like
more
that.
now, so I'm just asking.
I get emotional about the underdog, people who are bullied and abused, um, people who I'm the one that in meetings, if I notice that someone is trying to talk and people keep talking over them, I am the one that will speak up and say, so and so had something to say. You know, I'm that guy.
Does that come from someplace in you that you had to deal with things that
You ain't my therapist. I ain't paying you $300 an hour. I think that is true. I think that we are the sum total of our experiences and the people that we surround ourselves with, and I think that the people that are close to me are empathetic, and the people who, and then the experiences that I've had of my life, I know what it feels like to be not included, or to feel excluded, even though that may not be the intent. I know what that is. And so that is something that I am. Now, that question made me uptight. I'm gripping myself like this because of that, because you're right, it does touch something in me.
So what makes you feel appreciated? Not so much as a pastor,
Yeah,
but
as a person. I feel appreciated when people honestly engage with me and my ideas. Not agree, but when you think enough of me and you have leaned enough into what I have said to engage with me, whether you agree or disagree, that makes me feel human and connected. I don't have a problem with disagreement, but for people to disagree but not engage, You know, um, that that bothers me. Disagree, because if you disagree and you allow us to engage, you may help me. But if you're not willing to honestly engage, see, here's what I mean by engage. Don't come up to me talking about. Don't come up to me talking about. I didn't like that, and then I say why, and then you say, well, I just didn't like it, and then you walk off. Get out of my face. What can I do with that? Engage with me.
Have the conversation.
Tell me why, and then honestly engaging is hearing what I am saying in response. But if I step on your foot and say I didn't mean to do it, and you keep saying yes you did, what can I do? I said I didn't mean it. I'm sorry.
So when you became a pastor, what surprised you most about the job?
How much I care for the members. Yeah.
What's the least that you like about the job?
Meetings.
I relate to that. So what have been one of your greatest joys in ministry?
I have to say, like Paul said, and I'm just being very transparent here, so I may say some things in a way that you think a pastor shouldn't say. Like when I say, get out of my face, you may think, well, a pastor shouldn't talk like that. I want to be authentic because my joy is in seeing members who are authentic where they are. And then I see how God is using me to help equip them for the kingdom and for this world. I found joy in that. And I have to give all the credit to God. The number of times that I have come here or gone anywhere to minister and felt empty, I've felt that way. What in the world? I say to these people, what can I give to them? I need somebody to minister to me today. And God unfailingly shows up. And so while I am ministering to people, I am often ministering to myself because things will come to me in the moment. And that makes me appreciate God and to be able to say that God is faithful. And he cares so much about his people that he wants to make sure they are fed, even if it is through a vessel like me. So
what is one of your greatest challenges?
One of my greatest challenges is trying to be so careful, and y'all might not think this is the case, but trying to be so careful about what I say because things can be so easily understood or taken out of context. That stresses me out.
What do you need from your congregation that we may not even realize you need?
Be authentic and to recognize that I am a human being. And just because I don't agree with you or that you don't agree with me does not mean that you are wrong or that I am wrong. We just see it differently. We are living in a world now, this is one of the reasons why our Congress is the way that it is that if someone disagrees with you, we demonize them. A person can disagree and not be wrong because two things can be true at the same time. This fan, for example, if I ask you what you see, you're going to tell me you see people on it and that you see right at the top. And I can say to you, I don't see that. Who's wrong? No, neither of us. But we have stopped approaching life like that, especially in our politics. Just because someone doesn't agree doesn't make them a demon from the pits of hell. It doesn't make them a bad person. It just makes them someone that has different experiences that have led them to a different conclusion. What God intended for us as a part of a body as a part of people who work together. He he intended for us to have a more complete picture. But the only way that's going to happen is by us being in conversation, with me describing to you what I see on this side of the fan, and you describing to me what you see. That's how a body's supposed to work. Do you see that? That's how we're going to get out of this mess we're in the United States. And we're in a mess because when you have leaders who can't work together and won't admit that they are right or wrong about an issue, then you're going to stay at an impasse and you're not going to move forward. Did I answer your question?
You totally answered that question. What is the one thing you wish every member of this church truly understand about your heart?
That despite that I'm human, I'm still learning how to say things in ways, and I know that I have a PhD and I teach, but I'm still learning. And just as I give you the opportunity to grow and learn, give me that same grace. I'm going to do something that you don't like. I promise you I will. Not because I'm trying to. I want you to like me. But at the end of the day, you liking me is not going to get me in the kingdom. You liking me is not going to get me in. I have to be faithful to God. And as God is growing you, He's growing me. I'm not the same pastor that I was 10 years ago. Some might say I'm worse. But I'm not the same pastor I was 10 years ago. But if we can all be authentic, be ourselves, stop pretending to be holy if you know you ain't, we'll accept you. But you got to get holy because God says we got to be. You don't have to pretend that you don't make mistakes. Be you. You don't have to pretend that your home life is something different than what it is. Be you. Let us get to know the real you. The truth makes us free. And if we walk in delusion and we walk in deceiving ourselves, the freedom can't come from that because God can't work in that. I'm not saying get up in front of the congregation and confess, last night I want to hit. No, that ain't what I'm talking about. But when you walk through those doors, and it happened tonight, I was talking to somebody and I said, how are they doing? And I said, I appreciate that. And I asked the question, what needs to happen to make you better? I want us to be that type. Because it's so much inauthentic, it's so much fakeness. Even this lean toward woke that people have is fake. Pretending to be so politically correct. You know, you don't go along with all that stuff. So be real. Whatever that looks like for you. Let us get to know you. And let God transform you into Himself. Don't you try to transform yourself. Let God do it. Because if God does it, He'll do it on His own time, and then it'll be real.
Pastor, I know ministry can be very rewarding, but it can also be very challenging. How do you handle criticism, especially when it comes from the people you are called to lead and serve? How do you respond when people say negative things about you, knowing that you still have to stand before them and preach God's word?
I first have to hear the criticism. And I don't just automatically dismiss it. I wish I could say that I'm like a duck. Water just falls off. It doesn't. It sticks to me. I cogitate on it, think about it. I recognize that some of it is true. But just because it's true doesn't mean I'm supposed to do anything different. Some things that are true, I need to consider and go to God about, figure out how to approach it differently. But the first thing I do is try to hear, ask questions, get an understanding about what is being said to me. And when I get out of the bed from being depressed over hearing the criticism, I come back before the congregation and I look past their faults and I ask God to show me their need so that I can minister to them for Him, not.
I like that.
Doesn't mean it's always easy. In fact, it is incredibly difficult. When you are a pastor, you're called to serve. A lot of people don't serve. If I don't call somebody because somebody in their family died, there's criticism attached to that. You didn't know? Why didn't you call? I didn't know. Somebody is sick and I don't do something toward that, there can be criticism. And don't misunderstand me. Criticism is going to happen regardless of what you do. That's just the nature of the way the world is. But when I'm sick, who calls me? When somebody in my family dies, I remember my grandmother died. She was one of the closest person to me. Who calls me to see how you doing? I'm not saying that people don't do that. I'm saying that it doesn't happen to the extent that perhaps people would think. So in order to be a pastor, you have to be willing to serve. And you can't serve people that you don't love. And you can't love them if God doesn't empower you. Otherwise, you'd be like Moses. You'd be hidden, hidden stuff.
I understand what you're saying because I know when my brother died, and I'm saying this just being transparent. For 3 days, I didn't hear from you, and I automatically felt some type of way because my pastor did not call me. So when we was in Chattanooga, when I saw you, I asked you, and you came, and I said, "Did you know my brother died?" And you but had that feeling, if I didn't approach you with that and just assume.
Exactly.
And that's one of the reasons why we're having this conversation tonight, for you really to get to know your pastor. And if there is a problem, come to him and talk to him about what's going on. I went to him because I wanted to know why I hadn't heard from him.
Right.
And he was like, I didn't know. And I said, well, it was on the prayer line. And he was like, Mother Green, I'm not always on that prayer line, But before I had that conversation, honestly, I was feeling some type of way. And if I hadn't had that conversation, and because sometimes we just want to keep something, against you in a way. You're not you person, but I'm just saying, we want to keep something against you, realizing that, and I had to have this conversation with somebody. If you have a problem, if something is going on, if the pastor is not coming to you, go to your pastor. Go to him and let him know what's going on.
And when you come, be prepared to engage and be honest. And by being honest, I mean you be honest with what you say, but also be honest about what you're hearing as a response. My intentions are righteous. I don't have no ill will toward nobody. For real. Ain't nobody got time for that. I'm trying to get to the kingdom.
Right. Facts.
I don't have ill will. In other words, I don't wish bad things on anybody. I'm not trying to do stuff to aggravate people, except when I'm ministering. I am trying to get past the noise. But people are, and maybe it's because of my delivery, and I told my wife, I just have to accept that. I just have to accept that. And I told her, don't feel sorry for me. This is part of, this is a part of what it is as a result of who I am. So, but I don't have ill will. And people don't think sometimes. And when I say these things, I don't want anybody to think that I'm picking on them or that I'm trying to point them out. Or I'm talking about being a pastor in general. Because many of the things that I'm saying, you ask, if you ask your pastor, he'll agree with me. I forgot my train of thought.
I understand when we don't look at our pastors as having a whole life. It's like we might have this one thing going on. You got all these people over under you, and then other responsibilities and family. But it's like when something is going on with us, we want that attention, and so we want to blame it on the pastor because he didn't call, or he didn't do this, or he didn't do that. And it doesn't matter, I don't think, as much as you talk. Sometimes it's just going to be that way because everybody is just not going to get that. They're not going to even consider that because at that time they're so consumed with what's going on with them and what they need from you. But the thing about it is they're not going to come to you and say what they need. Automatically assume that you're supposed to know what we need at this time when we're in this crisis. And I don't think that that's going to really change. Some people can see it differently just from the night. Other people, that's just the way it is because when we're going through, we're consumed.
Sure.
So and then we got this pastor. So I definitely understand, and my heart goes out to pastors sometimes and the things that you all have to deal with, but at the end of the day, at some point, sometimes it's just not going to change.
Yeah.
You gotta accept that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, and that's, I am very blessed, and it has been the honor of my life to pastor Words of Life. This is a great family for real. People do, check in. People do, send me corny things to try to make me laugh. I appreciate that about this community. I appreciate that about this community. I wish, honestly, that I could be one of those pastors that every time you call me, I answer the phone. I wish I could do that. I can't. And I know people say that about their pastors. I hear them say that. They say, anytime I call my pastor, he answers the phone, he right there. I wish I could do that. I can't. Several different reasons. But if I know someone needs me, I can lean right into that. Right? You have a bad habit, Mother Green, of calling me and saying, call me when you get this message. I hate that. You know why I hate that? Because I don't know what you want.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to prioritize you in the triage.
I get it.
Of the other people that I need to, because you know how many phone calls I had to take today? And tomorrow I go back to work and I'm spending the day trying to get my stuff together for the year and all of that. I'm not complaining. I'm not. This is a part of the way that I get my crown. I am not complaining. I'm just saying what it is. So I prefer that when people call me or they text me they tell me what it's about. And you also say, I need to talk to you. And I'm like,
Yeah.
and part of what, because part of what you do as a pastor is you could have a habit of catastrophizing because most of the time people reach out to you when something is wrong, right? So to call me and say, I need to talk to you. In fact, somebody sent me a text this week and said, I want to talk to you about this conversation that I had. And immediately my mind went to, what did I do wrong? Right? Now, that's just a bad habit that I have. It's a bad habit to assume that. But 8 times out of 10, it's a problem. It is.
Yeah.
And I'm not complaining. I'm just describing what it is. So sometimes if you see something, or if you see me responding a particular way, there may be a reason for it. I need to get this water. I'll get dry.
Well, after everything we talked about tonight, the title, the pulpit, the sermons, and the responsibilities, who is the man you hope we've gotten to know tonight?
I wish people would still respect me as a pastor by seeing I want people to know that Superman is also Clark Kent. Superman is also Clark Kent. Spider-Man I was pausing because I was trying to come up with the P word that I was going to say with Peter Parker. But I'll just say Spider-Man is a nerdy Peter Parker. He's a nerd who's in love with this girl that he pines after. And I hope you're understanding the analogy here.
If you could leave the church family with one thought from your heart tonight, not a sermon, just something from you to us.
She didn't intend that to be funny. You all.
What would you want us to know?
Besides what I just said, I want you to know that you cannot truly love people, that we cannot love each other as a family if we don't know each other like a family. I sent a message on GroupMe today. Did anybody read it? It said, I quit. No, it literally did say, I quit. But it was about wanting to encourage us to quit acting churchy. And let's be real. How can I love you and meet your needs if you don't give me the opportunity to know you? How can you truly know me as your pastor if you don't recognize all the different parts of it? It may not be important for you to know that I like watching Korean dramas. That may not be important to you. It may not be important to you that at one point in my life, I was really into fish, and that I've got 4 125-gallon tanks in my basement, 1 250-gallon tank. That may not be important for you to know. But how would it make you feel to know those things? And how would you see me if you knew that after I preached my grandmother's funeral, I had to be rushed to the hospital? How would you see me differently as a result of that? Knowing that when my son tells me he loves me, I have to turn my head and shed a tear. Because my 15-year-old son is man enough to tell me he loves me. Or when my daughter takes it upon herself to make me brownies, hint, hint. Let us love one another and let us get to that point where we are in love with one another and not the facade of who we think somebody is. You said not a sermon, but too late.
Well, it's been a blessing to sit up here and talk to you because I have had the opportunity to spend some time with you one on one. Every time I do that, I walk away with something that I didn't have because you are authentic and you are down there. And you're not as intimidating as it seem in the pulpit. You're not. But it's going to be up to us to get to know you that way. It's going to be up to each one of us to take time out with our pastor, even if it's while you sitting there, somebody can just come up and give you a conversation or something because it means a lot. I'm so honored to sit up under you. I am, and wherever I go, I take you all. When I travel, I take all of y'all with me, and I make sure that I carry myself accordingly because of y'all, and because of you, and because of the people. So honored and so thankful, and thank you so much for just allowing us just to get to know you a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mother Green. Thank you.